Hello and welcome to an evening with Julian Schulz from the Green Party of Alberta. Julian, before we start anything, would you like to give us a brief introduction of how you got into the Green Party and what was it that was your draw?
Mm, yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, so the reason why I got involved with the Green Party is, I've always been more kind of, I would say, like left-leaning, concerned about the environment, that kind of thing. And, I'm not like highly partisan. I think the policies, your values, these things matter more than what, the color of your party is or its name. Um, I might have been inclined and have in the past, to be honest, supported the NDP, but I'm really disappointed with the direction that they're going in. And for my part, I think, for example, on issues like the environment, climate change, they don't take these things seriously at all. And the oil industry has such a huge influence on our government and on our economy. In many ways, that's negative, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to, share in the wealth that they're creating. Um, and so I felt like there were so many things that people aren't advocating for, and the Green Party is really the only one. And in fact, in this election, I've heard people say nobody's talking about this issue, so many times that I'm like, well, actually, we're talking about it. The Green Party is talking about it. We care about it. And so I feel like we're a really vital voice, and that's why, when the leader Jordan Wilkie called me up asking me to run in Edmonton Glenora, I said, I thought about it a bit, but in the end, I said yes. This is important. Somebody needs to stand up, to represent us, and to advocate for so many important issues.
So, what would you say are the key, the main things you're standing behind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say as a party that, for example, one of the main policies that we're standing for is universal basic income. So this is the idea that literally every person in Alberta would get um, an income that allows them to afford the basic necessities no matter what. And it's not based on any kind of qualification that you have to meet or any application that you submit to bureaucratic officials. Everyone gets it no matter what. Because we recognize that things like food, housing, all of your basic necessities, these are a human right. And so that's one of our main policy planks. I'm the health critic of the party, so another thing that's really important for me, and it's important relating to equity, and is expanding our healthcare system. So we need to defend it, first of all, from privatization, which is advancing under the UCP. But also we need to expand it. I think most Albertans understand and agree that public system is better than the private system that the United States has. They know about the problems there. But still, we have private delivery of various kinds of services like dental care, mental health care, um, physiotherapy, and other things. And we feel that all essential medical care should be covered under Alberta healthcare. You don't have to pay out of pocket. And this means everyone gets, the healthcare that they need, regardless of their level of income, regardless of who they are, their identity, whether they're a member of a marginalized group. Um, Everyone gets the healthcare they need.
All right. So, moving into environment, I would like to get a little more specific on what are the kind of things you would like to see changed, and is there a
Yeah,
plan to do that?
yeah, yeah. Uh, uh, Number one, I would say, is just transition away from an economy that's based on oil and gas and extraction of other fossil fuels like coal, um, and all the negative effects that has, not only the environmental harms, but also the kind of boom and bust cycle of the economy. And the reason why people call it a just transition, people refer to it in different ways, um, is that, we need to protect workers in this industry. They need to have jobs, guaranteed jobs. Their pensions need to be protected. Their benefits need to be protected. We can't just make this change and leave everyone behind. and that's a way of getting buy-in for this important program. And of course, if we move away from the oil industry, um, we have to acknowledge that it's the largest source of emissions in Alberta. It's the largest source of emissions in Canada. You can't address climate change if you don't address emissions from the oil sands and the gas industry, because it's just impossible. Yeah. And I don't see a willingness from any other party to do that. Um,
So when you say
yeah. Also,
that, you surely have a plan for some other, like we always say that Alberta is a one horse economy with oil being that one horse. So what are the other horses?
yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, some people may be surprised to learn that in Alberta, we have only about 6% of people are employed in the oil and gas industry, which may be a shocking figure to some people. That's certainly a very sizable number, but it's not a totally insurmountable problem. And actually, we specifically have plans to create employment for people, recognizing that they're going to be transitioning in an organized way over several years away from this industry, and so we need to invest in for example, a revolution of green energy, solar, wind. We need to build solar panels, install them, build wind turbines to make our electricity sector 100% green. And also, we've also accrued a huge amount of liabilities in terms of orphan wells. And in fact, you can create as many as 10,000 jobs every year just cleaning up orphan wells. And I think actually this is a great opportunity for former workers in that sector because, um, you know, they're working directly in that sector, and so they can actually help the environment by working in a very related field. Um, and we also need to invest in Albertans. We need to invest in education, in a strong public education system, in a post-secondary system that doesn't charge tuition, um, and also your basic income. That's going to really help people who are trying to start a business, because they know if their idea doesn't work out, and that happens, that they have income that they can fall back on. They're not going to be destitute. They're not going to be thrown out of their house. They still have a bit of income, and so they can take the risks to start a business and diversify Alberta's economy.
So I really like this idea. Right now, it sounds pretty fanciful to have this universal, basic income. And how are we going to
Yeah,
sustain something like that?
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, some of the research on this idea has been pretty surprising, even to me, to be honest. When I first started learning about it, I thought, how are we going to pay for this? I had some of the same concerns that many people have. Will it cause inflation, that kind of thing? And we have to recognize that it is a huge cost, but also it saves us money in many areas. Like poverty is very expensive. Um, Crime is a huge cost to society, um, and people tend to use our healthcare system more, just as a result of poverty. We have Indigenous children being taken into foster care. One of the main reasons for that often is just because people are poor, and maybe they can't provide for their children just because they don't have the financial resources to do so.
Hmm.
And it allows people, say if they're a primary caregiver, then they have a source of income they can rely on, and they can do that important work. And the person who's being cared for can have a family member helping them. And so there are benefits from this what I would call an investment. So you see a return on that investment, and that addresses the challenge of paying for it. And research has even shown, so they have trialed this kind of idea on a smaller scale, and it's found surprisingly that it didn't cause inflation. That also you have this like bureaucracy for like AISH in Alberta. People have to apply, and people evaluate those applications, and there's many people working in that area, and it's quite costly to do so. And so you save all that money because it just provided automatically. And we're also going to raise revenue to pay for it. We should have a more progressive tax system that requires
Okay,
the
let's
wealthy.
talk about tax. So what is this
Yeah.
progressive tax system?
Yeah, of course. So previously, under the progressive conservative government, we had a fully flat tax. That means that regardless of your income, everyone paid the same rate. And it was, under the NDP, slightly changed, slightly adjusted, right? So it's a little bit progressive, meaning that people with lower incomes pay a little bit less, and people with higher incomes pay a little bit more. But it wasn't a huge difference. It didn't make a widespread impact. And the shocking thing is that we sort of have a reputation, Alberta, of having low taxes, but in BC and other provinces throughout Canada, if you make an average income, you're going to pay lower taxes there. In Alberta, the first tax bracket goes up to $130,000. That's actually pretty high, and so everyone from who's making $0 to 130,000, they're paying the same rate. We should actually be lowering the rate on people with lower incomes. And then people with higher incomes should be paying more. And in case of like millionaires, they should be paying much, much more.
That's true. And it'll be interesting to see how this works out. Somehow it's always the middle class and the poor who pay more than anybody else anywhere.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's a very
That's not
difficult
fair.
thing to, twist it and say that we can get the rich people to pay more because they always find loopholes. Um, let's
Mhm.
uh, let's talk to you about the education. Now the curriculum had been reworked and a lot of stuff had been done to it, which
Yeah.
was quite displeasing. So like we just want to know if you have a plan to do something with it which is more respectful to everybody and
Yeah.
doesn't create any divides.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, what you're alluding to is the curriculum rewrite under, then Kenny was in power, and currently it's in, you know, um, phase stages of implementation. As we all heard, it's been widely panned by educational experts. They say it's not fit for purpose. That the people who developed it didn't really have the requisite expertise, and it's kind of ideologically motivated. They're trying to teach children, a UCP appropriate kind of curriculum. And that's not okay. In a democracy, you shouldn't force children into a particular political view and, potentially even give them misinformation. So we need to restart that process again. I mean, definitely, it's absolutely true that the curriculum needs updating. We need to restart that process. We need to do that with people who are qualified. We need educational experts. We need teachers. We need subject matter experts to provide that kind of input. And then also, stakeholders like parents and students, everyone to be involved. And we need to take that feedback seriously. I think, one of the problems with the approach to the prior curriculum development is that, that was giving feedback was like talking to a brick wall. They weren't really interested. They had their agenda and their idea of how this should look like, and they weren't willing to change it.
Thank you so much for that. I really look forward to seeing, how if the Green Party has a say, how this will change. The other thing I wanted to know is about the, social justice and the policing.
Yeah.
So, is there something that you have a plan on, how you're going to work with, like have an anti-racism body or whatever it is?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a hugely concerning thing, and something that's really not being talked about enough in this election. For example, the dramatic overrepresentation of Indigenous people and Black people and other marginalized groups in the justice system, really at every stage of it. And then at the same time, when they're the victim of crimes, um, police aren't taking them seriously. So this is a huge problem. So first of all, the way that we want to approach crime is very different. The UCP and the NEP, they want to hire more police officers, and that isn't going to address it at all. What we need to do is we need to recognize as that sort of a social disease. We need to that it's being caused by like people living in poverty, by people having mental health problems that aren't being treated, um, and so we need to provide free mental health care. Um, and we need to use a housing first approach to homelessness, right? Which has proven to be effective, for example, in Finland, and to save money. But it's also an issue of justice, and you know, crime is a sign of desperation, and people shouldn't be in that desperate position. You know, there's all this research saying that you know, if you address these kind of underlying causes, that's really the only thing that's going to be effective. You know, we always try more policing, more criminalization, and you know, it just hasn't worked. And just the tremendous cost of policing. You know, in Edmonton, the budget increases every year, and it's the largest source of the city's budget, and they have a limited amount of funding, which means that other areas are not being addressed as well. Um, and then also we need some accountability. I mean, we saw, for example, you know, with the Freedom Convoy that, you know, people were violating all kinds of bylaws and laws, and you know, there was court orders requiring them to you know, police to do something about it, and you know, the police were also assisting the protesters as well. So there wasn't a lot of accountability there. And also recently, I was at a protest for um, Pacey Dumas, who was the victim of police violence. Um, and you know, ACERT, they made a report saying that, you know, the officer who assaulted this youth, you know, he should be charged. This was an inappropriate use of deadly force. And then, you know, they just decided not to do anything about that. You know, no accountability, and that's inappropriate.
Wow.
So yeah,
So, so you think that, managing the all these parameters like homelessness and all these things will help the situation of social justice?
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it'll help tremendously. You know, and even, you know, things that I was talking about, like the progressive tax. You know, like studies have shown that income and wealth inequality has all these negative effects on society, and on happiness, on the rate of crime, on like social disorder. And one thing I didn't mention about, which if I'm slightly off topic, I'd like to bring up here is that you know, if we want to talk about crime, and crime that isn't being addressed at all, we should talk about corporate crime. We should talk about white collar crime, which has really wide ranging effects, which is very common, and really isn't being addressed whatsoever. I mean, people just kind of get away with it. There's a lot of crime related to environmental pollution and the oil sands. And it's greater in scale and in terms of value and the harm that's caused than any individual crimes that are being committed. And you know, basically, they have a license to get away with it.
And what about the social inequalities in hiring and, like different kinds of HR practices where
Yeah,
um, different marginalized communities are kept away from jobs that they very well can do as compared
absolutely.
to somebody from the mainstream community? So, how would you
Yeah.
make sure that, there is a proper representation of every citizen from every part of the world who lives here within every echelon of society?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the founding principles of our party is social justice and respect for kind of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so that's very important to us, and it's a founding principle of all Green parties in the world, including our Green Party of Alberta. In terms of hiring, of course, you know, we recognize that people, regardless of their race, religion, you know, gender identity, that they can do jobs just as well as anyone else, and so they should be, you know, they shouldn't experience any barriers or any discrimination in hiring. And you know, first of all, that starts with the way we communicate. We need to state vocally that everyone is is welcome, and that applications from all people are accepted. Particularly groups that may be marginalized. Indigenous people, Black people, LGBT people as well, of course. And we need to be collecting data about, the rates of hiring. We should be comparing, um, how many people of certain races, of certain religions are we hiring? Obviously, disaggregated data that doesn't violate anyone's privacy, but we need to be looking at these things, and we need to be having like benchmarks of success. And pay equity is also a huge issue. Um, People should be getting equal pay for equal work. We should be collecting data about that. And if people are not, then the government needs to step in and address that, through legislation, or if it's, people hired by the government, then you can move in and directly address that. And
How would
also
you
you can,
say is your party represented? Do you have a good diversity within your party?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think, of course, there's always room for improvement, and we've made changes to our party's constitution, and we've made concerted efforts to improve the diversity of our candidates, which has been a problem. I would say that we're making steps forward. Um, we have two Indigenous candidates, which I believe across all parties there really are very few, only a handful. So I think we could be doing even better than that, but that's um, you know, doing pretty well. So positive step forward. One of the challenges we face as a third party, we don't have as many resources, is that it's harder to persuade people to get involved, and you have to sacrifice a lot, and you don't have this automatic buy-in into your party, and so that means almost anyone, regardless, of their identity, is resistant to doing that. And so it makes it a bit more difficult for us. But we could be doing better. I think we have, probably disproportionately in terms of like probably more male candidates than female. And we should be having more Black candidates as well, of course. And I don't know the exact figures across the board, but I think we could be doing better, and we should really be having a slate of candidates that reflects the makeup of the population in Alberta,
Thank
and we
you,
could be doing
because
a little better there.
it's nice that you acknowledge. So I just wanted to also, take, now we have just about 5 minutes left to our interview.
Sure.
And so I would like you to focus on the areas that you think we haven't covered so far, and kind of, give your famous last lines.
Oh wow. Okay. So it's a free segment for me here to
Yes,
think about
please
what I
go
want to
ahead.
talk about. Yeah. Well, I guess I want to address why the Green Party is here. We have this two-party system. Um, we um, face huge barriers to the entry of any other party, and we have to acknowledge the UCP, which, in our opinion, many supporters of other parties acknowledge this. Of course, supporters of the UCP don't, but they do represent um, a certain threat, and we're very disappointed with the way that they have governed our province in the last 4 years. And personally, my day job is as a public employee of a public institution, and we've seen the impact that their cuts to our institution has had disproportionately. But I still feel that the Green Party is an absolutely vital voice. First of all, we need to democratize our electoral system. We need proportional representation. We need to end this discussion of voting against people. People should be voting for people. And we shouldn't have these false majorities where somebody gets 35-40% of the vote, and they get well over the majority of the seats, and then they get all the power. We should have a proportional system where parties are forced to work together. You don't have this partisan rancor, this division, and issues that are being ignored, like climate change, also diversity of candidates. Uh, proportional representation has a lot of benefits. And that's one thing we support. First of all, we shouldn't have all these wasted votes. We shouldn't have these kind of random results that aren't based on the number of votes each party got and the percentage of the votes that they got. It should be, if you get 40% of the vote, you get 40% of the seats. Of course, the Green Party would benefit from this, but this applies to really every party. It should be a fair system. Yeah, and I would certainly encourage people, to have a look at our platform. We have a lot of good ideas. I've only covered a small fraction of them here.
Mhm.
Um, and also try out Vote Compass. I feel like I was reading an article in the CBC the other day, and it said that actually the NDP supporters are more to the left of the party, and they're really going in the direction of the Green Party. And so I think we have a lot of people who don't realize that their values, their vision for what Alberta should look like, how we should address the issues that are plaguing our society, like climate change, like the drug poisoning crisis that is killing 4 Albertans every day, um, and housing affordability in general. These are huge issues, and the Green Party really has a credible plan. And as far as the UCP, the way we see it is that yes, we don't support what they're doing. We think we can do a lot better than that, but not just a little bit better, not just kind of stepping over the bar a little bit. We can be doing way better than that. And maybe we have big ideas. They may sound um, a bit ambitious, but um, the, they're based in the evidence. We've done our research, and these things work in places all around the world that we've looked at. And so, things like expanding the healthcare system, we know that works in many industrialized nations. So there's no reason why it can't work in Alberta, and we can have these good things. And if we invest government money more carefully, if we don't waste money on corporate subsidies, on bad investments in the oil industry, on a fake pipeline like Keystone XL, we're going to have a lot of money that can be invested in Albertans and people, in ending homelessness, and addressing the crisis in mental health care, serving Albertans so much better in many ways, and tackling climate change. These things are real. We can do them. We just need to fight for them, and that's what the Green Party is doing.
I'm so floored by what you just said. It's absolutely amazing and very optimistic. So I really want to wish you all the best for
Thank you.
what lies ahead. And it's also a wish for Alberta. We really need
Yeah,
some positive people to come up in leadership, not people who just are just haggling and fighting with each other. That's not
absolutely.
that's not the Alberta I want.
Yeah,
And I just hope that we will see some positive leadership coming up after the elections. So thank you so much for joining us today, Julian. And we're really, really grateful for the beautiful ideas you came up with.
thank you.
Um, all the best. Thank you.
Okay.